have never met anybody that has taught me more than Dr. Ronnie Jones.
Thank you, Reverend Gerald. I can't recall an instance where he was that brief. Let me, if I could, just take one liberty, and that is, since we do have this challenge today, and this is not the end all because there'll be others that we'll have to endure. If we get close to that time and you're parked out here on 11th Avenue, my feelings will not be hurt. I mean, Lamert, this is Lamert. My feelings will not be hurt if you have to go out there and move your car. The only thing I ask is that the usher on this side of the room be sitting back there in the corner with the baskets on your way out the door. You drop off your offering. But I think this presents a very interesting challenge for, understand we have a new board here at our church, and you need to come up with a contingency plan. We have way too many senior citizens in here to have to do a whole lot of walking to come to church. So a contingency plan is something that you can do. It's allowing Spirit to operate through you. So with that said, let us do something as we begin today at the conclusion of this idea, Spiritual Manhood Awakening. Let us seed the atmosphere of this place. And by that I mean let us all speak a word into motion today, right now, and let's fill this room with it. So I'm going to give you a word, and I just want you to affirm it after me, if you would. I am love.
I am love.
I am inspired.
I am inspired.
I am joy.
I am joy.
I am happiness.
I am happiness.
I am powerful.
I am powerful.
I am peaceful.
I am peaceful.
I am restored.
I am restored.
I have dominion.
I have dominion.
I am the glory of God.
I am the glory of God.
Made manifest.
Made manifest.
As that which I call myself.
As that which I call myself.
And I want you to know that you are all of those and then some, but only if you can accept it. It all begins and ends within yourself. Today is the culmination of the 2 months where we've been celebrating both the feminine and the masculine energy of Spirit. And, there was a word that was spoken that I remembered and I wanted to bring it up today. And that was during Women's Month. You had a speaker by the name of Deneen Joyner. And she said two things that I think are appropriate for this moment. She said that she came to inform us that we are spiritual beings first. And then secondly, she said she came to be our alarm clock to wake us up. And I thought that was interesting as well as it was profound that she came in to wake us up. And then, of course, Brother Davis sang the song today about waking up. So with all of that, the question I throw out to you is, are you awake? Because so often we find ourselves that we are listening, but we're not hearing. There's a lot that is going on, and we fail to collect it and use it because while we claim that we're hearing it all, we're not really hearing it. We are listening. And there's a distinct difference between listening and hearing. Because when you hear something that begins to have an impact, you begin to apply it then. You don't wait until after you're gone. You don't wait until something has transpired within your experience. But you want to be forward thinking, so when you hear something that is very inspirational in that moment, you grab that information then and you begin to apply it to your circumstance at that very moment. It's the writer in 1 Peter who said this. He said that those who are seeking and receiving spiritual understanding are born anew every day. And every day the milk of the spiritual word continues to feed and to nourish the soul. Now, the operable words here are seeking and receiving. And we have to ask ourselves, where are we at in that? You know, so often for a lot of us, Sunday is our social day. We've been tied at home all week, and this is the opportunity to get out of the house. So we come here, and this is our social outlet. We haven't done anything all week, but now we get an opportunity, and we get dressed up, and we come to church, and that's a good thing. But let's come here for a reason rather than it being our social experience. Let's come because we are seeking something, and we anticipate being fed. The Bible said that those that seek shall find. If we knock, the door shall be open unto us. So I would like to think that if we are awakened to the knowledge that we are spiritual beings first, and then begin to use our spirituality to allow it to alter our circumstance and take us to the place where God intended us to be. Now, if we can believe that, I want you just to say this. Today, I step into my inborn potential. Won't you think? Let's say it once again. Today, I step into my inborn potential. And that's the possibility that's extended to each and every one of us. Today can be that day that you step into your potential. We don't know how far in this world we can go, and we'll never know until we take that step. So often a lot of us set out goals for ourselves, and oftentimes we are saddened that our goals are not met. And it's because we claim a goal, but that's all we've done. We've claimed it. We've not allowed it to give it the space to unfold. We haven't allowed it to take place because there was no real expectation. You know, we'll say a lot of things, but we believe very little. I recall I believe it was last Sunday, we had a great speaker here, Reverend Alexander James. And he spoke clearly on a message he told us about the instance when Samuel went to visit the house of Jesse to anoint the next king of Israel. And so when he got there, Jesse, of course, was all excited that here the greatest prophet of Israel had came to their house to visit them, and he knew the purpose for which he came. That he came with the oil of anointment because he was going to crown the next king of Israel. So he was excited because he just knew it was his older sons. These were the individuals that were just so extrovert in their personalities. They were involved in everything. They were very social. They served in the armies, and everyone knew who they were. And so when they came and they stood before the prophet and he looked at them, he said, no, it's not any of these. He said, do you have another son? He said, well, yeah, there's another one, but, you know, he's a shepherd. He spends most of his time with the sheep. He is their protector. He makes sure that they are led to water. He makes sure that they are fed. And when he is not doing that, he spends his time in praise and worship. Imagine that. While everyone else is out making a name for themselves, or everyone else is running to glorify themselves and in their ego, this one was sitting back there tending his father's sheep, and when he wasn't doing that, he was involved in praise and worship. And we said, well, how could we know for any instance that that's what he was doing? Well, look, he is the only one that wrote the Psalms. And what is that other than a book of praise and worship? And there's a praise and a worship for every instance that one might find themselves in. If you are happy and you're glad and everything is working out in your life, there's a psalm for that. And if there's an instance where you feel as though you are despaired and life is not treating you the way that you would like, there is a psalm for that. And it becomes an instance when you think that God is not right where you are, there is a song for that. But the greatest ones are the ones that uplift. Now, what was David doing? He was humbling himself. And because of that, he was able to very easily step into his potential. And I want to dwell on that idea for a moment about one stepping into their potential. You know, on the third Sunday when Reverend Gerald was speaking, he said something to me, and I was sitting right here. He said, you know, you must be really proud of Reverend Lisa and Reverend Paul. As their teacher, longtime teacher, he said, you have to be very proud of them and what it is that they are
on
doing.
her dad's side.
And no other word could have been truer than
Dolores
that,
Story,
because
please mute
absolutely,
yourself.
Randy, right now,
I'm extremely proud of them
trying to
both.
go into church
Extremely
online.
proud of our senior minister. And I'm quick to call her our
Okay.
senior minister because that's what she is. And how she has stepped up and how she has
Okay,
presented
I'll talk to you
herself
later.
as an instrument of the divine. I'm so proud to watch how inspiration just flows into her, and it gives her a message to give to all of us. And I'm so happy about it. You know, even when I talk to her sometimes, I say, you know, I could use more than 2 Sundays a month. I said, when that inspiration is flowing through you and we get you on that first Sunday, and then you throw Reverend Gerald and Reverend Paul in there, they're great, but that inspiration is flowing through you. So I said, so this year, is it possible that we can get more than 2 Sundays a month? Oh, I see a witness up in here. So Reverend Lisa said, you know, I will think about that. I said, okay, well, I'm going to stay in prayer for that. Because although I may not be here, I'm there. And I'm catching it all. And I still would need more than 2 Sundays. Because this place is my heart, and she is doing a tremendous job. But then as I began to ponder this idea, spiritual manhood awakened, and I'm saying to myself, I wonder who came up with this theme for this month. Was it Reverend Paul or was it Reverend Gerald? I said, now I don't think that they had a collaboration of people and said, okay, let's throw out ideas and see which one we're going to come up with. I'm sure it was a committee of 2. But I said, I wonder which one. And I said that because as I began to go into preparation and listen to all the speakers, and as we were speaking on the concept of spiritual manhood, I said, this topic so clearly represents Reverend Paul. And I said, it so clearly represents him because I have watched, as you have, a spiritual giant awaken. Yes, 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 yes. And see, from my vantage point, I've seen it more than the rest of you because I've been there in the beginning when we got started. See, you know, I can recall the time when it was just Reverend Lisa and the 2 kids being dropped off at church. And there was no Reverend Paul other than he was the dropper off. And then all of a sudden one day, we had our very first church picnic. And one of our members who we need to continue to hold in prayer, Paula Katara, she spearheaded that picnic. And we went down to, I believe it was Los Alamitos Regional Park down in Long Beach. That was our first church picnic, and we were still over on 48th and Main at that time. And Reverend Paul came to the picnic. And so I saw him down on the basketball court with the other guys, and they were having, you know, a really great time playing basketball. It was a wonderful church picnic. And after they got through, we had an opportunity to talk and mingle. You know, here we were in a very recreational environment. Everyone was very relaxed. Their hair was let down. There was no pretense. We could talk about whatever we wanted to talk about and enjoy the day. Then I noticed shortly thereafter, we had the foursome come to church. It was Reverend Lisa and Reverend Paul with the 2 kids. But from that moment to this moment now, he never stopped coming. From that very first service, he heard something, he felt something, and whatever it was that he heard and he felt, it obviously inspired him. And he began to attend every week thereafter. So once again, getting back to this idea of spiritual manhood awakening and making this analogy, this comparison with Reverend Paul, I began to go into my research and said, well, what is spiritual manhood all about? So it was defined that within a religious context, it emphasizes the development of strength, wisdom, and character in man's relationship with God, and his leadership within his family and his community. Biblical manhood is about honoring God. I said, okay, all of this continues to point me to, this is what was happening here, was that this was an idea, maybe unconscious to them, but they were describing someone who was such an integral part of this church. And so as the more I reflected on it, it reminded me of a story, the story of the Buddha in Thailand. And the story goes that there were these monks who wanted to relocate their Buddha. As they began to relocate the statue, they noticed a crack. So they stopped their efforts and they went home that night. But that night, a lone monk came back because there was just something about that crack that piqued his curiosity. So he came back with a mallet and he decided that he was going to chip away at that crack. Wanted to know what was beyond it. The more he chipped, the more he noticed the brilliance coming out of that crack. So after doing a bunch of chipping, he stepped away and he discovered to his amazement that there was gold underneath all that clay. He found out that centuries ago, as Thailand was being invaded, monks covered a golden Buddha with mud to save it. Treasure was now discovered. There was a crack in consciousness. And maybe it was something that we all kind of experienced at some point within our own experiences. We were moving and a crack developed. And we wanted to investigate it to find out what was beyond that. Can you think of that instance when you were mired and covered within a traditional worship experience? And you were moving along in that, but all of a sudden something came to your attention and it piqued your interest, it inspired you, and you want to know a little bit more about it. See, all of us, I would guess that the majority of us did not grow up in New Thought worship experience. Whether it was Methodist, Baptist, Holiness, we came out of something different, or maybe didn't come out of anything at all. But all of a sudden, you were introduced to something and it piqued your interest. And someone dared you to apply it to your circumstance. Someone told you the things that one could expect with an application of faith, expectancy, and belief to how you could transform your experience. So you believed it. And what happened? You began to chip away more, and that chipped away more means that you came more. You began to also hear what it was that you were listening to. And the more you heard, the more you began to apply that to your circumstance. And as you began to apply it to your circumstance, all of a sudden, you saw change. You saw demonstration. You saw manifestation. And what did that do other than to increase your belief and your faith? And you wanted just a little bit more. And someone came and told you, dare to believe more and you can receive more. And what did you do? You dared yourself and you began to believe more. Reverend Paul experienced that crack. I can recall an instance I said to Reverend Lisa after watching Reverend Paul one Sunday on Zoom. I said, you know, I think he needs a little more airtime. I said, give him a little more airtime and we're going to be amazed at what's going to happen. Because during that instance, Reverend Paul loved to be in the background. He was very effective there. He's been in the Sunday schools. He was teaching in the Sunday school for an awful long time. And I don't know if any of you ever come to prayer and visioning on Wednesday. He's in the background there. He's the one that's in charge of the Zoom operation, making sure that those who want to watch it virtually can see it. And wherever there is a need, he's quick to fill it in without saying anything. He doesn't make a whole lot of noise. He's very stealth in all that he does, but he's effective. And what is that other than spiritual manhood awakening? Something is awakening. It is awakening within each of us as we allow it to. When we began today, we filled the space with words of inspiration. They're just words unless they have meaning within your heart and within your mind. Each one of those things that you said, if you were to apply meaning to it, you would allow it to do something to alter your circumstance. But that's only if you want your circumstance altered. I would think that when we come to an instance like this, we come to receive a blessing. But not only do we come to receive one, we should become willing to give one. That we come in because we have accumulated an awful lot of light. And this is our time to recharge so that it can glow. That we're going to leave this moment and go into the next. And when we go into the next, we should go with some offering. Something that we have gathered from this experience that we're going to share in the next. Because we're able to. When we come to church, our whole mission should be, I'm going to leave this moment inspired and empowered. Else, why do we come? I can recall an instance when I first came into the science of mind. And I was a member of Founders Church over on 6th and Berendo. And I was there every Sunday and every Wednesday because it was empowering me. But I've always been one that went to church from the time I was a youngster to up until this moment now because it empowered me. There's nothing more empowering than to sit around with the saints and that everybody is bringing some goodness to bear. With that, I was just thinking about all the stuff that's going on right now. We see all the ice raids all over the place. And we're sitting back, not only are we watching the ice raids, we're watching everything that's going on in Washington, and we're sitting back horrified. They're destroying this, they're destroying that, they're doing all this, they're doing all the other. Now, if I were to ask for a show of hands, and don't worry, I'm not going to do that, and ask each time you see an infraction, what's your approach? Have you blessed it? Have you blessed that circumstance? When you see these individuals that you feel are being treated unfairly, have you spoke a word into that circumstance? And see, oftentimes we don't because we don't believe the word we speak. We haven't allowed ourselves to become inspired to the point where we are encouraged to do just that. Think for a moment. Every instance we have someone that comes in and they give us a powerful lesson and we're just like popcorn and hot grease. We're just popping up. Just popping up, and that's a good thing. But on Monday, if someone said, what did you remember from that? Can you share it? Can you share it? So how has that empowered you? And see, when we are not empowered, then what can we expect from our neighbors and everyone else that's all around us? Going back to that story of the Buddha, the statue, treasure being covered with mud. Think of that as yourself. Imagine the moment when God released its spirit into you as you, but covered it with flesh. Knowing that there would be those who would be willing to look beyond the appearance and discover their divinity. There'll be those that be willing to look beyond their fragility and discover their strength. There be those that would look beyond their circumstance and discover their power. Is that you? Imagine. We marvel at everyone else. We marvel at all the inventions. Look at the technology and the stuff that is happening. And then we forget the ancient writers that said that God had no respecter of persons. So that wisdom, that understanding, that inspiration that's been given to all those that we laud as being great, we forget that that same greatness is within each of us. The difference is that they dared themselves to use it. They sat in an instance and received inspiration and continued to apply it. And so often the rest of us, we don't. The first law of the universe is to be prosperous, to multiply, to cause even greater good to happen. But it'll never happen if that's not our belief. We have a member I always so often tease when I come to church, and I said, you're following that stick as opposed to that stick following you. And that's true of so many of us. A lot of us have gotten to that point where we need something for our balance. But that's all it's for, balance. It's not for you to follow. It's to balance you so that you can stand erect. I love the analogy that Reverend James gave last week about the redwood trees. A tree only knows but to grow. And to grow up, not sideways. Continue to grow up, reaching for something higher than itself. Even though it can be in the midst of a fire, its bark is so thick that it doesn't allow itself to be consumed. And I so often refer that to ourselves that, we're quick to be consumed by anything that comes along because we're not grounded. And we're not growing up. We're not reaching for something greater than ourselves. So many of us are just so content with the status quo. And if that's where you are, that is fine. But I would like to hope that the rest of us are looking for something greater than the experience that we currently have. And with that, I would say, did your alarm go off yet? Have you made your discovery? It was the Apostle Paul writing to the Romans in one of his letters where he said, from the very creation of the world, the invisible things of God has been clearly seen and understood by his creations, even his eternal power. From the very start of consciousness, all the things of God have been understood, but not applied. And we haven't even scratched the surface. We are still growing. We are still unfolding. There's still so much more ahead of us. But it's only ahead of us for those that are willing to seek, those that dare themselves to believe, those that dare themselves that they are tied with all the power and the glory that there is, those that have a real vision for themselves and believe that they can live that vision. Is that you? Has your alarm gone off yet? If it has not, today's a new day. Set the alarm. Cause it to go off. Every day, set a new goal for yourself. If it's nothing more than I'm going to be happier today than I was on yesterday. But set something different. Strive for something more. If not, complacency will take you home. It will take you home. It is up to us where we go in this great adventure that we call our lives. I have this affirmation I'd like to share, and I'd like to use it as my closing this morning. I'd like everyone, those of you that are here and those of you that are with me virtually, I'd like for you just to relax and close your eyes for a moment. And every time I say the word I need for you to personalize it and apply it to yourself. Today I rise into the fullness of my divine nature. knowing that spirit within me is always renewing, transforming, restoring, and expressing as love and as joy. The wisdom of God is my wisdom, and I make wise choices. The vision of God is my vision, and therefore I look beyond the immediate. I look beyond past limitation and barriers. I see the perfect and the unfoldment of possibilities and realize that I am born of the Spirit. Today is my time of transformation. And as I leave the place of my resurrection and move into a new moment of divine knowing, I begin a new life, one enriched of spirit and guided by right thinking. Everything I need for my new journey is given me, and I accept the gift. Gratitude flows from within me, illuminating my environment with the light of God. Every word coming from my mouth is blessed. Therefore, I speak greater good into my circumstances. Abundant prosperity is my new experience beginning now. I have more than enough to have and to share. And as I give, God blesses me more abundantly. God is real in my life and all that concerns me. The limitless power and energy of the universe is flowing through me now. I feel it. I direct it. I am it. And for this, I am eternally grateful. I realize that this word I speak, as I release it, it lives in this moment. Therefore, I give it life as I let it go. And in letting it go, I let God. And so it is. Peace and blessings to you this morning.